Gabor Lukács. He is the president of Air Passenger Rights, a passenger rights advocacy group, and he joins us this morning from Budapest, Hungary. Good morning to you, Gabor. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Let's get your reaction to the fact that WestJet now canceling 150 flights here. More are expected to be potentially canceled if the strike drags on. Are you surprised by how we got here?
Good morning. I'm not surprised whatsoever. Employees in every industry other than emergency services have the right to strike, and in this case, WestJet employees are exercising that legal right. It is unfortunate WestJet has been mishandling its labor relations so badly that it came to this point. Ultimately, employees are entitled to fair wages. From a passenger's perspective, WestJet is required, even under Canada's not so great passenger protection rules, to rebook passengers on its own network or competitors, depending on whether it can resolve the rebooking within 48 hours of the original departure time. It can be its own network. But if it cannot, then WestJet will have to take out its corporate credit card and buy passengers tickets on flights of Air Canada or any other competitor if it cannot rebook the passenger on a flight that departs within 48 hours of the original departure time. That's the law.
We're talking about tens of thousands of travelers who are impacted right now, though, Gabor, and it is a busy, long weekend. Is it realistic, or how realistic is it for these passengers to find alternate ways of traveling through the airline or even getting their money back?
Money back is always an option. If you didn't get a flight you paid for, the airline has to give back your money. That's a no-brainer. The bigger question is how you can find alternate flights, because WestJet has a history of non-compliance with its legal obligations to rebook passengers and competitors. That's an ongoing problem. Unfortunately, the current government has been letting go without any real financial consequences. If you are a passenger in this situation, what I would recommend doing is giving WestJet one chance to comply with the law, and then just going out and buying a ticket yourself, and then making WestJet pay for it in small claims court, if you can find an expensive flight at all. What is important, though, is that if you do want to fly, do not utter the word refund. You are not seeking a refund, you are seeking a rebooking. If you are seeking a refund, WestJet will just refund you and wash its hands from your expenses down the line. So it's important that you insist on getting a rebooking and that you get a good app to record your phone conversations with WestJet, because those phone calls are evidence if you need to go after the airline for your expenses.
That's great advice, but it does still sound like a huge headache, again, for these tens of thousands of travelers now wondering exactly how they're going to get to their destinations, or in many cases come back here home to Canada. And of course, we don't know how long this is going to last. We know the airline is saying that, quote, the only reason for this union to continue with the strike action is to create damage. What do you think of that statement from WestJet? I
find his statement insensitive and repulsive, because WestJet is trying to blame its employees for its own failure to manage its labor relations properly. Canada already has a quite weak passenger protection regime, and in Europe, for example, it is well recognized in such situation that the airline would even have to compensate passengers, not just to rebook them. So WestJet needs to take responsibility for its corporate affairs, including its labor relations, and act like a grown-up. This is not the fault of the employees in any way, and the employers are simply exercising their legal rights, and WestJet doesn't like it, of course, but it still has to respect passengers' rights and the employees' rights.
The union also saying on its side that the strike was inevitable because it says the union was unwilling to negotiate. Do you agree with what the union's saying?
I don't know what was happening in the negotiations. Certainly, if there is no agreement between two parties in labor relations, then job action may happen and has to happen in some cases, because those employees have strike is essentially the only way for those employees to show the employer that their labor is worth more than what the employer is willing to pay. We know that the union, or rather WestJet, is calling on the Minister of Labour and the Canada Industrial Relations Board to try to resolve this matter. What more do you think the government should be doing here? I think the government already made a mistake by trying to refer it to a binding arbitration. This type of interference is not helpful in an industry where those employees do have the choice of moving south of the border and taking their talents and skills elsewhere where they are going to get paid more. I don't like it that my airfare personally may go up as a result of this strike, but I still think that those employees have the right to get a wage that meets the labor market's realities. What the government should have done long ago is invest into training of flight crew, of pilots, of maintenance, aircraft maintenance workers, because that is the way to change the market forces.
If someone has a ticket to fly out this morning with WestJet, now seeing that their flights are potentially canceled here, your advice then, if you're going to call your airline, ask for that rebooking versus that refund. Just want to make that clear to anyone who is not clear how they're going to get to where they need to go.
That's right. We have to be very clear that you want a rebooking. And if they tell you, well, these are your only options, your answer is no. Your only option is to comply with the law. You need to be very firm with airline employees, polite but firm, and make sure that you record your own conversation for your own records. Don't take a refund. And if the airline says, well, we are not able to rebook you to depart within 48 hours of your original departure, then insist that they buy you a ticket on a competitor. If that's also refused, then you just say, well, I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm going to make budget pay, and just live up to that. Go and buy an Air Canada ticket for possibly even a business class if needed, and then you go back to WestJet with the evidence that they didn't rebook you within 48 hours as required, and make them pay for the extra expense. It's lots of hassle, but if you want things to change, if you want the next strike to look differently or not even take place, you must make this extra effort because the government is not protecting you, unfortunately.
Well, we'll see how the government steps in this particular case and whether the Minister of Labour and the Canada Industrial Relations Board actually comes in as well. Again, we're looking forward to what WestJet has to say at a news conference later today. But in the meantime, do want to thank you for your time and your insight. Gabor Lukács is a passenger rights advocate. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me.